Good morning, everybody. It is time for our third virtual field trip. We are so excited to have you guys with us today. I'm Mary Wilson with the Alabama Farmers Federation. And one thing to start, we would love for you guys in the comments to let us know where you're from. So just go ahead and type that in if you're watching this. We want to see where you're from, what city and state. Even if you're watching this after it's been recorded, please go ahead and let us know, because it's fun for our farmers to see just how far this is reaching. And speaking of how far this is reaching, we're sharing some of the photos that you guys have shared with us. And back when we did our very first virtual field trip on peanuts, we actually had Vicki Love Rodina share this with us. She made some peanut butter Buckeye balls with her family, and they're out of Sterling, Virginia. So it was great to know that somebody all the way from Virginia was watching and then got together with their family and made that wonderful recipe of those peanut butter Buckeye balls. And last week, if you remember, we visited with Allie Logan and Cassie Young down in Barber County about their fruits and vegetables. And Jax of Troy had a lot of fun coloring in his coloring page that has all the different fruits and vegetables, well, some of the different fruits and vegetables, not all of them, that are grown in the state of Alabama. So we also want to see what you guys have to share. So after this, there's lots of fun things that, lots of fun activities that we're going to link to. And we want y'all to go do some of those, fill out the coloring sheets, and then tag us in pictures of your kids as they're coloring or once they have everything finished. So on Facebook, you could share that and tag us at Alabama Farmers, or on Instagram, we are at Alpha Farmers. Another reminder for you, along with letting us know where you're from, your city and your state, in the comment section, you can go ahead and start asking questions about beef cattle, because that is what today is all about. It's going to be about raising beef cattle. So we definitely want your comments and questions. So it is time for our main event. And sorry, Doug the dog down there just sneezed if y'all heard that in the background. He's got allergies right now too. But our main event is with Grace and Taber Ellis. Everybody say hey. We're very excited to have y'all with us today. Right now they're at their farm in Autauga County, and they have lots of great stuff planned. So we're going to let them kind of take this over, and then we'll get to your questions about 15 minutes or so in. But we're really excited to see all of the animals and all of the things that y'all have planned for us today. So y'all, Grace and Taber, y'all take it away.
Well, Mary, we too are excited to have you guys at our farm, and thank you so much for tuning in. And hopefully we can answer any and all questions you have about cattle. We don't claim to be experts, but we do live in this world, so hopefully we can answer most all of the questions that you have. But before we get to questions, I wanted to just kind of cover some basics, tell you about our background, and then talk to you very basically about cattle, and then talk to you about how cattle comes from a farm like ours to your plate in your house. So we'll get to those things in just a little bit. But a fun fact about Taber and myself, we are both beef cattle farm kids. We were both raised on family farms where beef cattle was produced, and he and I actually first met when we were about 9 and 10 years old, showing cattle through 4-H and FFA. So for you kids out there, if you have the chance to get into 4-H or FFA, we encourage you to do so. You'll learn an awful lot about agriculture, but about leadership, and you may even find a special relationship out of the deal. So, but we are proud to be farm cattle kids, and our fathers both do still farm. And so because of that, we are able to work in cooperation with each of our dads. So we primarily farm on my dad's place in Billingsley, Alabama, but we certainly do a lot of work in cooperation with Taber's family farm in Hope Hole, Alabama, which is called Triple E Farm. So anything else you want to add to that, Taylor?
No, we're good.
I'm the chatty one in the group, so he has to nudge me to get in a word edgewise, I guess. So just to cover a little bit of just the basics about cattle, I wanted to go over what their genders are. So, you hear people talk about cows, and a lot of times we use the word cow very generically to refer to a group of cattle. But a cow is actually specifically a mama cow. So cows are females who have actually had a baby. They are able to have a baby because they spend some time with what we would call bulls, or maybe to simplify that, we would call those daddy cows, I guess, in simple terms. And after they have some time together, I won't go into those specifics, but they will have a calf, either a heifer calf or a bull calf. So you have cows who are the mama cows, bulls that are the daddy cows, and then they will produce either a heifer calf or a bull calf. Now, depending on what the farmer's goals are, oftentimes those bull calves, you will steer those. God, just like in human beings, God gives animals the ability to reproduce and to have babies. But if you remove part of the anatomy that allows them to reproduce in a bull calf, then you have what's called a steer. And so why would you do that? As you remove the part of the anatomy that helps them to be able to reproduce, the animal is able to put on more meat and on more fat, and the fat in the meat is what gives it flavor. So I feel like that's probably a burning question that a lot of people have. I've tried to dance around it, but hopefully I've answered it. Taber is giggling at me as I'm trying to delicately handle what is a steer.
Doing a great job.
Thank you. If you have more questions about it, ask Taber or ask your parents later today. So that's sort of the basics about, what is a cow, what is a heifer, what is a bull, what is a steer. So let's talk a little bit about color differences in cattle. You see cows come in all different colors, just like human beings. What determines that? Well, just like in human beings, it's genetics that determine what color a cattle will be. In cattle, we sort of differentiate oftentimes by what we call breeds. And those breeds are separated, again, by the genetics that they have. So you are probably familiar with the term Angus, which is a breed you hear often because the Angus sector of our industry has done a good job of marketing themselves as a high quality cut of meat. Angus cattle are traditionally black. They can come in red, but at their most basic state, they are black cattle. You may have also seen cattle that are red with white faces. Well, those are Hereford cattle. So there are a lot of different breeds of cattle that come in a variety of different colors. As you begin breeding those different breeds together, you're going to get genetics that are sort of a little more mixed up, if you will. That's a pretty basic way to explain that. But that will mean that your cattle could come in a lot of different colors. So to explain this a little more, my dad's herd is primarily a black herd, and he usually breeds to a black bull, but somewhere in the genetics, there is some red. So occasionally our cattle will have red calves. So I always call them our token reds. And I say that because I am a redhead, which also brings up a good way to explain this. I have red hair. My husband, you can't see it, but Taber's hair is dark brown. But we have two redheaded little girls. So obviously somewhere in Taber's genes, he is also carrying that red gene. So the same thing can happen in cattle that you see happen in human beings. Another question that I think a lot of people may have and don't even realize they have is the difference between a dairy cow and a beef cow. Big difference there. In fact, a fun fact to sort of validate this, you're probably familiar with Chick-fil-A's Eat More Chicken promotion, where you see the black and white cow who's writing scribbles on billboards all across the United States. That cow is actually a dairy cow. So I've always thought that it was funny that they're using a dairy cow to promote, people eating, well, ultimately chicken, but kind of pushing people toward beef. But there's a big difference between dairy cattle and beef cattle. The difference most obviously is in the name. If it's a beef cow, they're going to produce beef. They are a meat animal. If it's a dairy cow, they're going to produce dairy products or milk. They look really different. It's not just coloring. And by the way, dairy cows don't just come in black and white, but I'll leave that topic for someone else who is more experienced in
they
it.
look different because they're used for two different things. The dairy cow is more efficient if she can produce more milk. That's why you see a big bag of milk under them. And whenever you see the big muscled up like the bull or the heifer that you saw in the pictures just a few seconds or minutes ago, they're more muscle, they're fatter, they got bigger bellies on them because we have bred them to produce more beef. So that's why the you look at the dairy cow, it's not very muscular, it's not very big, fat. Like the picture you're seeing now, you see that heifer or that cow sitting there. She hit a lot deeper, a lot broader. That's because she was bred to produce beef. And then a dairy cow, that kind of just explains the difference in the way they look.
A dairy cow usually is a lot thinner. I'll use this in real life terms. I would probably make a better beef cow than I would a dairy cow. They're very thin. Smart man. They're very thin animals. They tend to be larger framed, and they have really, really big udders. So just like those udders you see on the Chick-fil-A commercials. So beef cattle are going to be meatier looking animals. They're going to be more muscular, and those dairy cattle are going to tend to be thinner because all of their energy is going into producing the milk that you drink and that you make a variety of other products from. So speaking of milk, I wanted to talk to you really quickly about the kind of food that cattle eat. And when they are born, their sole supply of nutrients is from their mother's milk. And they'll live on their mother's milk for exclusively for several months until their bodies are able to start digesting grass. And so they'll begin to graze. And farmers will often do what's called creep feeding, where we allow the baby calves to get into an area where they can start to learn to eat grain feeds, and their bodies can get adjusted to it sort of gradually as they're still on their mother's milk. It's a good way to sort of get them used to feeding.
Well, it's also just like we do in children. When you were growing up, your mother started feeding you more solid foods, and that's what we're doing with the kids. We're feeding them a pellet, something to help supplement the mother's milk to start naturally weaning them off where they start wanting to eat feed, wanting to eat grass. Their body's able to process it better, and it's just kind of a natural progression of it. They start eating those things and almost weaning themselves off their mother's milk by the time they're 5 to 6 months old.
Another interesting grain that they consume is, and we have a picture there of the soy hull pellets, but we also have a photo, and we have some here with us, some cottonseed. Cattle, we do feed our cattle cottonseed through the winter months. And this is exactly what you think of. This is the seed from a bowl of cotton. So as our cotton farmers are done harvesting and the seed is left, those seeds are pulled out of the fibers of cotton that go into making the clothes that you have. Cattle really love to eat cottonseed. Do you want to talk to them a little more about cottonseed and what's important for mama cows?
Yeah. Well, we're feeding cottonseed and hay throughout the winter. One of the things, cottonseed's high in fat, high in oils. It helps to keep their body condition up throughout the winter because, as you know, look in your yards, your grass isn't really growing during the winter. It's not very plentiful, and when you got cows on top of your pastures eating that grass and it's too cold for it to grow back, therefore you help supplement those cows with things like cottonseed, soy hulls, or hay to help their body condition, keep them fat, and the best words to use to keep their bodies working, producing that milk to help that calf gain as much weight as it possibly can throughout some of the tougher times of the year.
We also have some hay here with us, and I'll, if we can cut back to the camera here just a little while. And this hay comes in two different forms. It can come in the form of a round bale, which we do have a photo of that. That's actually my dad putting out a round bale for some cows. But then it can also come in a square bale. And Taber, I'm gonna let him do the heavy lifting. Taber can lift up a square bale here and show you the size that it can come in. These are a little easier to feed if you're feeding a small number of cattle, but obviously if you have a herd of cattle, which is a group of cattle, those round bales are going to come in much more handy. But you can sort of see it is the grass that we actually cut from the field. It's what we call cured, which means it dries, and then we're able to bale it up and we're able to feed it to our cattle later on. But cattle, their favorite thing, I would say, probably to eat is just really good green grass. And this time of the year, since the rain has been cooperative with us and the weather is starting to warm up, we have lots of really good green grass around here, and they're loving it. Our cows are quite literally looking fat and happy. So that pretty well covers all of the food that cattle eat. So let me go in and just sort of very basically explain how we get a calf from being born on a farm, like we have here, to being a hamburger that maybe you get from McDonald's, or maybe a nice steak that you get to enjoy with your family on a Friday or Saturday night. We reserve steaks for Friday and Saturday nights here in our house because they're our favorite. But so I mentioned to you earlier that our dads both raise cattle, and they do what's called they have what's called a cow-calf cattle operation, which means they have cows. They are breeding them to bulls, and then they are producing calves. Fun fact here I meant to mention to you guys, the bulls may be the sire or the father to a lot of different calves that are born. So while each calf is going to have a mama, they're all going to share, a lot of them are going to share the same dad. In fact, a bull can breed up to 20 to 30 cows in a season. So if you can't think about cattle as like a little family unit with a mommy and a daddy and a baby. It's usually the mamas and the babies, and then the daddy has sired many different calves in a herd. But again, details on that go to your parents. But our dads do have cow-calf operations, and so they are raising baby calves. So once those baby calves are born, the farmer is going to go out and give them an ear tag. We have an ear tag here. Look, check this out. This is my dad tagging a calf in the pasture after it's born. But for my husband, I'll show it off to you. This is his, it looks like an earring. But this really brightly colored tag will have an identification number. And it is put in with basically like a really big ear piercer. So don't worry, he's not going to try it on me. But it is put into the calf's ear. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt very bad. It's just like getting your ear pierced. And that tag will help us to identify which mother it goes to. It also helps us to kind of keep up with the record of the animal. If the animal has been sick and has needed to be treated, if it has a cold, cattle get colds just like we do. If we need to treat it to help it to feel better and to get healthy, then we can keep record of which calf has been treated. So it's just good management practices to make sure that your cattle have tags in their ears. So once they get old enough to be weaned off their mom's milk and they're adjusted to feed, then one of really three things is going to happen. Either the females are going to be kept as, oftentimes are going to be kept as what's called a replacement heifer. So they're put into the herd to replace those mama cows who have gotten old and they're not productive anymore, and they need to head on to the stockyard. So replacement heifers are one option that can happen to them. They can also be kept, if they are bull calves, and they can be kept as bulls, and they can be, sold to other farms for reproductive purposes, or they can be retained for use on your farm, making sure that you keep your management there. You don't want to do crossbreeding or inbreeding there. You got to be careful about that. That's why record keeping is so important. But then also those castrated calves that we talked about earlier, they are sold to stockyards. Heifers that are not going to be kept on the farm as replacement heifers, they are often sold to stockyards as well. So the vast majority of animals are sold to a stockyard, and that is a place where farmers will bring their cattle so that people can buy cattle from them. Taber's had to run off for just a second here. Don't worry, I'm doing most of the talking anyway, so it doesn't matter. So from the stockyards, people will buy them in groups of similar weights, genders, colors, and these are called orders. So these calves are called, once they're bought in a specific order, and they are delivered by a truck and trailer to a farm, they're called stocker cattle or feeder cattle. So that's what Taber and I do. So while our fathers do cow-calf production, Taber and I do stocker cattle production. So we get them from the stockyards. They come here to our house and they graze on that good green grass that you saw earlier. So we have them here, take good care of them, make sure that they're healthy, and that they, happy cows come from Billingsley, Alabama. We make sure that they're happy, and we'll do this. This process usually takes about 6 months to get them from the time that they arrive to the time that they're ready to be sold. And we're looking to get them to a certain weight Anything else you want to add to this?
Well, I'm not sure. Sorry, I had to run off, guy. But what we do with stocker producers, just so I can hit on that, is we're taking these calves when they go through the stockyard, bringing them to our home, putting them in groups. Whenever you see a big truck going down the road with cattle on it, they can carry 50,000 pounds, which we're grazing cattle here until they're about 700 to 800 pounds, which means there's probably anywhere from 67 to 65 head of calves on that trucker trailer. And once we're done with them, once we have grazed all our grass, because grass is seasonal, so as we go through the spring, we're grazing them on annual grass, ryegrass. So that's usually done about the end of May. And once that's done, we're putting them on those trucks, sending them out west to a feed yard. Did you?
I was going to get to that.
Okay. So
once they leave our farm here, either here in Billingsley or in Hope Hull, they are shipped to a feedlot. And at that feedlot, they're going to be what's called finished out. And that means that they have eaten really good food and they've gotten to the right weight and they're ready to be harvested. Usually this is about 12 to 1,400 pounds.
And some of the questions, go ahead and head them off, is why not just leave them on the grass? Well, it becomes very inefficient to leave those animals on grass down here because, as you know, during the summer it gets hot, grass gets a little thinner, and they quit gaining weight very fast. Why is that a big deal? We gotta be able to run a business. So to make them more efficient is once our grass is depleted here, we'll send them out west to either graze grasses out there because it's a different climate, different time of year, really, in some situations. And they continue to graze on grass, or we send them to a feedlot because it, again, makes them more efficient, which means they gain more weight quicker, which gives you a different taste in your beef. Also, a different value. It costs differently. To go ahead and to feed them. It costs a little more, but it makes it more efficient, and we're able to harvest those animals to provide beef, grocery stores, McDonald's, everywhere you eat hamburgers.
I want to interject something really quickly, just as a technical comment. My phone is going dead. We've got, country cell service, so I'm going to ask Taber to pull us up in StreamYard. So Mary, if you can hear me, hopefully we can make that transition in case my phone does in fact run out of battery power. So, but until then, we're going to
absolutely we can do that.
Okay, good. We're going to keep rolling, and I'm going to clear out the low battery message that I have there because I'm telling you my focus is just right there. So what were we talking about? Oh yes, beef cattle. Where were we? So from the feedlots, they're going to go to what's called a packer, and there at the packer, that's where they go through that harvesting process, and they become they're sold as the meat that you eat. So, and that's where you get your hamburger meat, your steaks, and even byproducts like leather, which goes into making a variety of things, shoes, belts. Do you ever think about the skin on the outside of a baseball? I guess you call it the skin. It is quite literally skin on the outside of the baseball from beef cattle. And even byproducts that are used for additives in things like crayons. I know you kids love crayons. My kids love to break them and scatter them all over the house after they've colored with them. And even byproducts in items like makeup. So you moms out there understand that there are parts of beef cattle that even go into maybe the lipstick that you have on. So, hey, Mary, if you could, would you email Taber, if you can, the StreamYard link? I think I neglected to do that. So, the last question I want to get to here, and this is what you guys have been looking for. Oh, Taber, give me your email.
Yeah, I'm going to need your email address.
Email.
Sorry.
LLS@alphains.com. Kids, you're welcome to email me any questions you have.
Ladies, you're not welcome to email him, but kids, you can. So
it was just TELLIS. I'm sorry, because it cuts out a little bit.
Yes. That's right. TELLIS@alphains. That's right. All right. So again, sorry about the technical problems here. When you live in a rural area like we do, it does drain your cell batteries just immediately. So The last question I wanted to get to, or the last sort of part of our explanation I wanted to get to, some of you may be very thankful for that, is how we care for our cattle. And this is probably the part that you've been looking for, not just because maybe it's the end, but because we do have some demonstrations for you in this. You're going to actually get to see some of the cattle and how we handle them. So how do we care for our cattle? As cattle producers, you know, these animals they're important to us. They're important to our livelihood. But we really do care about the cattle that come onto our farm. We want to give them a good home and we want to get them healthy. So we always make sure that we practice really good, solid management practices so that our cattle will be productive. But cattle are usually grazing in a pasture when they really on most any farm. So when they need special care, they usually have to be moved into what's called a catch pen. So this is a pen a smaller pen where you can drive them from a larger pasture into this smaller pen where you can start doing some sorting on them. So they're moved into this catch pen. And then once they're in this, and I should say this, they can be driven into the catch pen by horseback. That's what Taber usually does. By ATV, so like a four-wheeler, or even on foot if you have a small number and it's not a big pasture that you're driving them from. But once you have them in the catch pen, you move them into smaller holding pens. So you start to sort them out a little bit to make them a little easier to manage and to put less stress on the cattle. So from there, they're driven into what we call an alleyway. So this is, as you can see what's happening here, they go from big area to a little smaller area to a little smaller area to a small area. And it's important to get them in sort of those tighter areas as they come in to be handled because it helps reduce that stress and it makes the animal a little more relaxed. So once they get into an alleyway, they go into what's called a chute. That's C-H-U-T-E, if you want to look that up. And then they are all usually caught in what's called a head catch. So their heads go through. Cows have those big ears that come off. So they're able to put their head through there in the ears, and that sort of round part of the back of their head helps hold them in there so they can be still. And from that, the farmer is able to treat them for whatever need they may have. So do you want us to show you a demonstration of this? I'm going to, Mary, we're still looking for your email here. So if we do lose you, we'll come back on as quickly as possible. So I am going to flip this around really quick, and I'm going to, hey, up close, huh? All right, so let's flip this around, and I'm going to, Taber is here. This is, all right, so we are in our catch pen right now. So you can't see this, but on the other side of this black area that you see here, there are the holding pens that we've talked about. And so now we've got them in an alleyway. So this is the alleyway. Girls, say hello. They're all loaded up here. Like I said, we have them tight. They like to be close to each other. It helps them to feel a little more relaxed. So Taber is going to, I'm going to back up, and Taber is going to move the cattle into, this is the chute that you see here. And this is a head catch. So you can see once they get in the head catch, they can't go forward and they can't go back. This is a squeeze chute, which means you're able to shut the panels in closer, which again helps them to feel relaxed. And you're able to, Taber, you can put hands on them if you need to. We can do whatever we may need to do with them.
For example, this is where we put the tags in their ear. She's a little excited.
She's a little wound up.
This is where we put the tags in their ear. You may ask what this other tag is. What's the blue tag? And that has fly repellent on it. So throughout the summer, as flies start getting worse, it keeps flies from getting on them because horn flies, things like that are biting the cattle. We'll go ahead and let her out.
Yeah, let's let her go. Y'all say goodbye to this girl.
Things like that will actually,
there she goes. And
we'll actually make them lose weight because they're just like me or you. If they're being bothered by flies, if they're having to walk around, rub on trees, stuff like that to try and get the flies off of them, they're not eating. They're not being very efficient. So that's why we put fly tags in their ears, just to kind of keep flies from pestering them.
Yeah. So as you can see, our chute here is really dirty. Listen, if you don't like to get dirty, then you don't need to be a cattle farmer because Taber, tell them what this is on the side of the chute right here.
Well, a lot of it's just dirt. Also, we give them vitamins, minerals, wormer to keep them probiotics to keep their bellies. Everything we do and give animals is to make them a healthier animal and help them to be a more efficient animal. If y'all want to walk.
Hey, Taber, I'll tell you what, Mary has sent you the link over here. So I'm going to let Taber look at getting us pulled up on a different StreamYard screen. And while he's doing that, I'm going to show you some smaller holding pens. So just for reference, here's where the chute was. And right next to it, you see where we have these smaller holding pens that I talked about. Y'all tell them hello. Y'all say good morning. You can see we've got lots of different, we've got black animals, white animals, red animals in here. We talked about colors and cattle. I know that the lighting is maybe a little challenging right now, but on the other side of each of these holding pens, there's a larger pen that you would turn them into, again, that allows them, hear myself. Mary, can walk over to Taber's now.
Yeah, you're good to go over to Taber's now. Hey, this is what Facebook Live is, folks. You know, so we appreciate y'all hanging with us, and that we're getting ready for that transition. So now I've unmuted y'all's mic, and it's back to you guys.
So we can hear us again.
Here, let's turn this on. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, we can hear you for sure. So, oh, well now. All right. We did lose them for just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys some other things as we wait to get to see more of their animals. Let's add them back in. Can you guys hear everything? All right. Well, as for some reason I can't unmute y'all's mic right now. It says that you guys chose to mute yourselves. I don't know what that means. Can't hear you, Grace. Oh, there it is. Yay! All right, perfect. Woohoo! Hey, right. This is what live TV is all about, folks. So thank y'all so much for hanging with us. Back to you guys.
Sorry about that. And let me just, y'all, be excited because Taber has full battery power. So mine does not. But, so, all right. So the other thing I wanted to do demonstration wise, and I wanted to make sure I point this out. So a lot of the times you do have to get cattle into a catch pen and then of course into a chute to be able to work on them. When you have to work lots of cattle, for example, to put fly spray on them or fly tags or to castrate or to vaccinate, whatever it may be. There's a picture of our catch pen. By the way, that's actually where we're standing right now. So you can see that our cattle would graze in those larger pastures and they're driven into that catch pen. And then once they're there, we're able to sort them. But if you just have one calf that's sick and you have a really good cowboy, like I have here, who has a really good horse, then you are able to actually doctor them in the pasture. So we're gonna step outside the barn here, and Taber's gonna show you Ginger. She's one of our horses, and we'll also show you a couple other important pieces of equipment that cattle producers need to have. All right, I'm gonna flip you around so you get out here and get adjusted. Here we go. All right, so this is Ginger. And Taber is going to tell you about how what he needs to be able to doctor cattle actually out in the pasture without having to pull them into the catch pen.
What's up? Just explain what we're looking at. We don't just doctor cattle just to doctor cattle. It's only every now and then, whenever we need to. Just like whenever any of you kids have to stay home from school or anything like that because you're not feeling good. Same thing happens in cattle. So every now and then we do have medicine. I have it here on my saddle. The reason for that is so, again, it's more about efficiency. So if I'm able to either rope a calf with this or if I'm able to push him up into a barn where whatever's easiest on that calf is the way I make my decision. If they're going towards the barn, I'll let them go towards the barn. If they're kind of not wanting to go that way and wanting to stay out, I'm not going to just run them around. I'm going to try and get a loop on them, rope them. Kind of the technical term is trip them, lay them down, tie their legs up, and then give them a shot if that's what they need. Majority of a calf's life, that never has to happen to them, because most of them, I would say the vast majority of them, stay healthy. One, because of the vaccinations, just like we get flu vaccines. There's certain vaccinations we give calves to keep them healthy, keep them from getting sick, so they'll live happy lives, really. The other thing you see on the saddle is these. You'll recognize them maybe.
Pull them off and hold them up.
They're chaps or leggings. You'll hear that term a lot of times. The reason I wear these is one, I spend a lot of time in this in the mornings and in the evenings, and it's made out of leather, cow, and it'll rub your legs. As much work as we do in these saddles, it'll really rub the inside of your legs. So this is why we wear these chaps. You'll also see things like this hanging off of them. This is a tie string. So whenever I lay a calf down to doctor it, I'll tie up his feet with this. So he's immobile. He can't get up, can't run off, can't act up. He's tied down. And then, so that's basically why we wear these.
If I can interject something for a second here, for you moms who are having to purchase clothing for your children or for your husband, when Taber bought these chaps, I thought, why in the world is he spending this kind of money? But after he, several pair of jeans literally would rub a hole in them, I am very appreciative that he has these chaps. It helps those jeans have a little bit of a longer shelf life. So maybe you should get some for your kids to wear to school so that they don't get holes in them so quickly, but they might get some funny looks from their classmates. So anyway, Taber, I'm handing it back over to you.
Thanks for that, Grace. But no, just the rest of it. This horse, you can see she's red. I got a couple other horses that are different colors. Same reason cows are different colors, because of genetics, background, where they're from, how they're bred. It's kind of a fun fact there. Looking at the saddle, there's a lot of different type saddles. This is just a ranch type saddle that I have. It's built particularly to rope calves. It's built to be comfortable because I'm in it a lot. So you want it to ride comfortably. So that's the reason why this is all done the way it's done. You hear people talk about your saddle horn. This is considered a saddle horn. It doesn't make any noise. You can't blow it at cows to get out of your way. But it's whenever I rope cattle, I wrap the rope around this to hold on to them, to keep them secure, keep them close to me, so I can lay them down and doctor them, or if there's a calf that's tagged that's out far away from the barn or we can't get our hands on them, I can rope it, lay that calf down, and put that identification ear tag in their ear.
Ginger's been really sweet for you guys out here. I want y'all to see her face. Ginger, do you want to say good morning? Ginger, say hello. Yeah. So, all right. I wanted to, Taber, anything else you wanted to add?
No. Unless there's some questions.
I wanted to pull out here again so that you can see what Ginger is tied to, because I feel like this is sort of a cool thing that you maybe often see. But this is a cattle trailer that you see here. Cattle producers have to have a way to get animals from one place to another. So this is a pretty long cattle trailer that you see here. Up at the front of it, where Taber's sort of standing, you see that it has, this is called a gooseneck. So farmers will have trucks that have a ball that they're able to hitch to in the bed of their pickup truck, and they're able to hook the front of that trailer to that ball, and so they're able to pull cattle. And there are double gates on the back, so you just take those gates and you back up to your catch pen, open the gates up, and then you drive your cattle onto the back of a cattle trailer, and then you can move them as you need to. Another interesting thing I wanted to show you guys, this is the loading deck. If you've been driving down the interstate or really anywhere and you've seen an 18-wheeler who has a big tractor trailer of cattle on it, you'll know it's cattle because there's usually cow manure down the sides of it. It's double layer. As Taber said, they can get up to like 70 head in there.
60 to 70 head.
So it's two layers. So there's like it's like bumped. You know, there's a top layer and then a bottom layer. So to get cattle on that top layer, you have to have a loading chute that's elevated like this, so that they can the cattle can come down this alleyway and they can come up onto this loading deck. so that they're at the right height they need to load up onto that trailer. So that's another cool thing. And one last thing I wanted to show you guys, this right here, just sitting here, this is what's called a hay ring. So we talked to y'all about round bells earlier. If you'll put 2 or 3 of these rings together, 3 of the rings together, if you'll connect them, you can put a round bell in the middle of them, and cows are able to stick their heads through the poles to eat, and it keeps them from stepping all over it and go into the bathroom in it, so it keeps it cleaner, and it is sort of a better way to manage your feeding, so that you're not wasting the feed. So Mary, that pretty well covers everything, so we're happy to take whatever questions you may have.
This has been awesome. If you guys can maybe move back under the pen, just because the wind is a little loud. But we have a great question. A lot of people, I think, have this misconception about horns. So Jennifer Kirk out of Kingston is asking, can both cows and bulls have horns?
Yes, both cows and bulls can have horns. And a lot of people think that only the bulls will have horns. No, just like we talked about earlier about the colors of cattle, the genetics of the cattle are going to determine whether or not they have horns. So an interesting fact too, a lot of times the horns can make it difficult to really manage the animal. So if you have a calf that is born with horns while they're still small, farmers will do what's called dehorning. So you actually go in and remove that horn so that it doesn't become a risk to whoever will be handling them in the future. So doesn't matter, boy or girl, they can all have horns.
And just to add to that, one of the things, horns aren't as necessary as they used to be. Kind of horned cattle goes back to the heritage of those cattle, the reason they're bred differently, this or that. You'll see a lot of predominantly cattle in South Florida have a lot of horns. West Texas have horns, and different types, Herefords, Longhorns, Brahman cattle have horns. And the reason why these areas still have horned cattle is because they're in very rural areas, and they're not able to check them every day. And those cattle need to be able to protect themselves, fend off coyotes, things like that, or they're maybe trying to eat them or their baby calves. And you see more in those areas having horned cattle. Up in these areas, we predominantly bred horns out of cattle, which means we have as far back as they go in their grandparents, great-grandparents. The shorter the horns get, then you start getting animals without horns at all. So that's really, like Grace said, they're a little bit tougher to manage whenever you have cattle with horns. So we try and keep that bred out of them nowadays. So good question.
All right. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And let's see. The next one that I wanted to move to is Michelle Meeks. She was asking, what is the difference between an Angus cow or a regular cow? So let's talk about, I guess, regular cow. What might that mean, I guess?
So an Angus cow is just, again, like we talked about when we started, and I talked about that at the very beginning, so you may have missed it, but it is the breed of of the cow. I guess to compare it in human terms, maybe you would think of this as like the ethnicity. Its genetics are very specific to color, its ability to, there are a lot of things that goes into what determines what a breed will be, but Angus is just another breed of cattle.
Well, I mean, Grace did a great job with that, but just to make it as simple as possible, cow is a very generic term. That's like saying person or dog. It's a cow. It's an animal. That's just a very generic term to explain what it is. Angus is describing what it is. Just like you have a bulldog, Doberman Pinscher, a German Shepherd. It's just explaining what type of animal it is. You'll see in the grocery stores, you see certified Angus beef. Angus cattle are usually predominantly better quality animals. So if, different sizes, you got St. Bernards and you got Chihuahuas. They're just different animals. And so when you hear Angus, Charolais, Red Angus, that's just describing what type of cow, which is a generic term of what it is.
So all Angus are cows, but not all cows are Angus, if that makes sense.
There you go. It's like square and rectangle. Yeah. All right. Here's a fun kind of quick one from Libba Peak. She's wondering how you like your steak.
Medium rare. Don't cook the flavor out of it. You hear me? Don't cook the flavor out of it.
Enough said there, I guess, Bubba.
All right. Then
We got that in common.
now from Lacey Sloan Richardson, she's wondering how many cattle you have.
So this is a difficult one to answer because, well, I'll kind of answer it two ways. Our dads, of course, both have cattle, and I would say a couple.
Well, it's the reason it's difficult is because with cows, we keep them for several years, Lacey. So the cows that you see on our place that are having calves, they'll be the same cows minus plus a few different ones that'll have calves next year. But when we say we're stocker producers, I'm buying directly from a stockyard and then taking them to a feed yard. So my cattle change out every 150 to 200 days. So in a going year, on a stocker side, the small guys like me, you can have 400 to 500 head, or the big guys can actually go through thousands of head. Whereas when you're a cow-calf producer, you have the same plus or minus cows each and every year. So her dad has about 100 head. My dad has about 50 head or so. So that can increase and decrease year to year. Does that answer your question?
So I would say,
Yeah, that's perfect.
a few hundred, probably 600-700 would be the best way to answer that. It
I
comes,
guess so,
it comes across our farm throughout the course of a year.
All right. So I think this is a good question. We probably just have time for one or two more. But Alan Richardson asked, if a cow is sick, do you slaughter it and cut it up for food?
Alan, no, we do not. We try and get that calf healthy. And if we do have to give medicine, there's a mandatory window that you have to let that medicine work its way out of that calf's system before you can slaughter it and eat it or harvest it and eat it. So no, we do not harvest sick animals. A lot of times sick animals are put into a pen that hopefully they'll get better. If they don't get better, unfortunately, they may pass away. But no, we do not process sick animals, and we don't process animals that have medications in their system.
All right. That's fantastic news to know, because I think some people have concerns about that. So good to clear all that up. All right. I think the last question that we're going to bring in here is from Kelly Henson Palmgren. And she's wondering, is there an age that a cow would be too old to be slaughtered?
No, not to be slaughtered, Kelly. As long as it's healthy and as long as it's able to gain weight and to be productive to harvest, we'll harvest them. That's kind of, I wouldn't even say unfortunate. That's just the progression of life that we have with these animals. They're here for us to enjoy and to consume, in my opinion. So that's once they get so old that they can't have calves anymore, then they would be taken to a harvest facility. And the meat, you may be like, well, would they be good? Yeah, they would still be good. We wouldn't cut them up into steaks or things like that, but we would harvest them for ground beef. And a lot of the ground beef you may eat comes from animals like that. So,
all right. Well, yeah, that answered it great. Taber and Grace, thank you guys so very much. Y'all have taught us so much about raising beef cattle. I think this has been absolutely excellent. So everybody say thank you in the comments.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and we'll see y'all around the office when everything gets back to normal. Yes. All right. Thank y'all so very much. And all right. So now we want you guys to continue your learning. So we have lots of great things that are linked in our comments. One is this fun coloring page. You heard a lot about the different colors of cows from Grace and Taber. So we want to see what colors you're going to color these cows, which breed they're going to be. So that link is in our comments. We also have an ag mag. So you can learn even more. You can find out more vocabulary terms. if you click on this link, the best way to print this off on 8.5 by 11 paper is to actually download it, open it in Adobe, and then it will print correctly if you have some issues, because I had issues getting it printed this morning. There's also a fun word search. So some of the terminology that you learned today, you can find those words in this word search. And there's recipes linked on there. There's a couple of comic books. Last thing that I'll show you guys, these are actually from the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. And they have really cute drawings. So there's a little cowboy with his cow dog. We want to see you guys color this in. You can see what they're thinking about too. A little hamburger, a little steak maybe that dog is thinking about. And then this one is really nice as well. It's a nice little farm family there. They've got two little cowboys, which is a little different than Grace and Taber, because Grace and Taber have two little cowgirls that you didn't meet today, but they're adorable. So again, a huge thank you to Grace and Taber. We want to see your drawings, so share them on social media. Go ahead and tag us, and then we might feature you next week if you share those with us. And speaking of next week, we're excited because we're going to see some more animals, but these are slightly smaller than a cow. We're going to be talking about honeybees with Jeff Williams over at Auburn University's Bee Lab. So make sure to join us again next Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. We hope to see y'all then. Thank you so much. Bye.